Сега ще ви покажем нещо много интересно. Залата за анализи, която се ползва от Академията. И сме с...
Това е първият път. Ние я ползваме рядко за мачове.
Okay. And now we're here with under 9.
Under 9 to under 14.
Under 9 to under 14 performance and analysis coach. All right. Well, I'm impressed already. So, it's. Can I ask you just straight away, like, why do you have under 9 to under 14, analysis department at all? Like, well, how does it help develop the players? And because it's something interesting, we don't have it. We don't even have, academy analysis at all. So, what makes it, necessary, and is it necessary? I'm sure it is, but how do you work with the players and the coaches? Do you work more with the players or with the coaches? Do you help the coaches on both?
I'd say it's even, to be honest, between the coaches and the players. I think, obviously, in terms of academy analysis in this country, it's just the norm now in this country. So all academies will have analysis probably the 11s, 12s age groups all the way up. We decided to go a little bit younger, and that's because it's our belief that the earlier we start putting those building blocks in place, and not just around the football learning, but actually about the players being able to analyse their own performance and improve their observational skills, we think the earlier we can do that, the more that will benefit them long term. So we're almost not picking it up when they get to 12, 13, 14. We're starting before that, so we feel that gives us a little bit of an advantage on other clubs who maybe start a bit later.
All right. Well, it makes sense. So, how basically does this work? Like, what do you do? Like, it's more like games, or you also analyze training sessions you film, or both?
So probably the majority is around games, from 9s to 14s. But when we get to under 13s, under 14s, we start to film 100% of training as well. So that enables us to link the training to the match day a little bit more. So we will analyse bits of training. But still at the 13s, 14s, it will mostly be based around the game. So I've just pulled this document up, our kind of mission statement is to deliver those insights to influence performance. So whether that's giving something to the coaches, which maybe uncovers a part of the game that they maybe didn't see with their eyes, so that might be using statistical data, or actually it might be doing a one-on-one with a player and actually showing them something they've done really well that we want them to go and do again in the following games, or an area of their game that we think they can develop and improve going forward as well. So for me, I believe if we want to deliver those insights and change behaviours, the first step is always awareness. It's very hard to improve on something that you don't know you need to improve on. So I'd say, especially at the younger age groups, 9s, 10s, 11s, that's really what we're looking for. We're looking to give the players that visual evidence of what it is we think they do really well, so they can come back into training and games and say, right, I've seen that, I know what I do, I can do it again. Or giving them that understanding and that awareness of what it is we want them to go and develop and improve on next.
All right. So maybe we'll get into that. I don't know, maybe it's later, but we spoke earlier about it. I asked you, what is basically the difference between 9 to 14's analysis and then
PPP. So my age group's 9s to 14s, we operate in cells. So that would be 2 age group bands. So for example, the 9s and 10s is one cell, the 11s, 12s is another cell, and then the 13s, 14s is the third cell. So the analysis philosophy will change depending on which cell you're in. So that first cell, 9s and 10s, it's all about the individual, and it's all about individual ball mastery. So it's a lot about technical work and actually mastering the ball for themselves and being really 1v1 dominant in the game. When they get to 11s and 12s, our philosophy is what we call understanding the structure. So it's still keeping those elements of developing the individual and it being about ball mastery and the technical side of the game, but it's also about, when they move to the 9v9 game, it's also about starting to understand our structure and how we like to play as a club, what our identity is from the first team all the way down, and how we like to play. And then when they get to the 13s, 14s, it's again keeping those elements, but add in what we call developing within the structure. So that might be now starting to move away from that basic structure and introducing things like rotations, a little bit more complex tactical information. And how the delivery kind of looks, I think I've already mentioned it, it'll be all around the individual 9s and 10s, so one-to-ones very much around that one person. 11s, 12s, it'll be now still doing that, but adding in small groups and pairs and little units and things like that as well. And then when we get to 13s, 14s, we will do some whole team analysis sessions, but the majority will still be either one-on-ones or units. It might be the defenders all together or the attackers all together looking at the topic.
All right. Well, I understand how you do it for the 13, 14s, but let's say the 9 and 10-year-olds, you said it focuses ball mastery, ball control, but how does it connect with analysis? I mean, it's ball mastery, isn't it more like on the field with the ball?
Yeah.
How do you analyze ball mastery? That's
So I think the first thing will be kind of, obviously a lot of people associate analysis with feedback, so feeding back on action which has already taken place, but a lot of the time with the 9s and 10s it will be giving them a bit of an activation of what we want them to go and do next, so it's almost feed forward. So it might be, for example, if we want someone to work on a Cruyff turn, we're showing them a video activation of elite players doing that to start with.
Okay.
Or we have our own technical skills video which breaks it down into probably like 3 easy steps. So if you want to master the Cruyff turn, here's 3 things you really need to, when you go out and practice, you really need to focus on. Here's the technical detail. So it's almost giving them that activation before they go out and do it, which we think can then go and help inform it. And then based off that, when they play the games, we will clip all the games, we'll clip all their individual actions in the game, and then we will give them feedback on what their targets are. So they'll all have an individual learning plan, which will have a few different objectives that they're trying to work on technically. And then myself and the coaches, through our online platform Huddle, we'll give them feedback after the game on what we thought they did well around that target and what we think they can go and do better technically.
Okay, so let's take as an example the Cruyff turn. Do you teach all players to do the Cruyff turn, or you get the wingers and strikers, offensive players, and you show it to them, or is it like more like whole team session? Or?
Yeah, so it's really based around the individual. So we do have skills which we call our core skills. So that's probably 10 to 12 core skills that we think every player who comes in the building, we want them to practice and try and master those skills. But outside of that, if we've got a really creative individual who's maybe doing things which are outside of that, we won't discourage that at all. So if you've got a skill which works for you, and it's maybe not a Cruyff turn, just because it's not in our core skills library, that doesn't matter. So you can go and be creative as an individual yourself if you want to.
It's almost like that's the least we expect in those players, and then anything you add on top, then
brilliant, exactly.
All right. So, how often do you work with each team or a player? Once a week, 2 times a week, or whenever it's necessary?
So again, that will vary based on the players. So at the older end of my scale, so the 13s, 14s, it will be weekly, so it will be a bit more frequent. Whereas at the 9s and 10s, again, it's all based around what that individual needs. So if we feel that individual, so every single player will get weekly feedback on our online platform, and that will be delivered remotely. So they can access that at home from the comfort of their own home, and they can have a little conversation with us that way. And if we think a player's completely fine with that and they're understanding what we're asking them to do and they're engaged in that, then we probably won't do anything in person with them one-to-one. We'll leave that with them and wait till they get to the older age groups to check in a little bit more. But if we think we do need to have that discussion with the player and have that one-to-one and have that in-person connection, then we'll do it based on the needs of the player. So at the very younger age groups, it's all based on the players, what they need, when they need it, how they need it. And then as they start to get a little bit older, 13s, 14s, then we have things which are in the diary, if you like, weekly, where we have those analysis sessions and they look a bit different. So it might be a unit session, it might be an individual session, it might be a team session.
Okay, so there's a whole department in the academy about analysis. How many of you are
so we have 4 full-time staff. So you've got myself who does the 9s to 14s. We've got 1 analyst for the 15s, 16s, 1 analyst for the under 18s, and then 1 analyst for the under 21s.
Okay, so 4 guys. Well, probably there's so many things I want to ask you.
Sorry, did you want me to explain how that then works into the older age groups and the PDP as well?
If you could say a few words about it. Like, do we need to show some slides or something? You think it would be easier, or would it help?
I can get up at some examples in a minute. Take talk through it first, and I can
okay,
say some examples. Sure. So 15s, 16s will be very similar to the 13s, 14s. So it will still be about trying to help individuals improve, because ultimately we're not going to get teams who go through to the first team. It's going to be maybe 1 or 2, but obviously when you get to the 11v11 game, it's about those individuals learning within the team structure as well. So we do have to have a balance of team, unit and individual analysis at those age groups. When they get into the 15s, 16s, What they will start to drip feed in a little bit more is maybe how we change our game plan based on the opposition, but it will still be mainly about what we want to do as individuals and as teams, how we want to play. How that will then look different going into the 18s, 21s is a lot more will be based around the opposition. So, for example, our analysts at the 18s, 21s will watch maybe the last 5 games against the opposition coming up this weekend. They'll put together a report which will be based on video and data to give to the coaches to say, this is how we think this team is going to approach the game. Here's their strengths, here's their weaknesses. And then the coaching staff will come up with the game plan based off that information. But what doesn't get lost at those stages is, again, that individual development. Because even at those age groups, we're looking at those 1, 2, 3, 4 individuals who we think can make that jump to the first team. So it's still a balance of the individual analysis and how we play as a team as well.
I think like big thing with the individuals and the team is like, if you have, say, an individual, say a striker who we think is unbelievable at scoring crosses, and that's what's going to get him in the first team, it's really important how we tailor how the team plays to provide that individual with those opportunities. And that's why like it's really important that the structure of the team is probably first, and then is centered around the individual. So you can't just focus on the individual, forget about everything else, because ultimately you just focus on what the player does, and then all of a sudden you go to a game and he doesn't get any opportunities to do what he's good at, then it doesn't make sense. So that's why I think probably that team identity is the biggest vehicle for sort of individual development.
All right, okay. And when we speak about analysis, video analysis, do you sometimes use the stats from the GPS, what they give you, or do you collaborate with the strength and conditioning department in how do you basically, what data do you take from them, or
so,
do you give them as well data?
Yeah, so some clubs in the UK and across Europe, the role will be combined, so you won't just be a video analyst, you'll potentially be that GPS analyst as well. Here at this club, we have it's a separate entity, if you like. So the GPS analysis and the analysts themselves will fall within the sports science department rather than the performance analysis and video department. But from time to time, we will collaborate. Again, that will be around individuals. So for example, if we think we have an individual who doesn't really work hard in transition when we lose the ball, it'll be a case of myself, the coach, and the sports scientist getting together, having some video evidence to show that, but then also backing that up with the GPS as well. So they might have less high intensity runs in those moments where we lose the ball, and we can kind of match up. What we've done in the past is we've matched up the timeline of the GPS data with the timeline of the video as well. So we can see, right, here's when we lost the ball based on what I've found, that's when we lost the ball. Okay. And then it'll be, right, in these moments, what was his high speed running like, what was his intensity like? Okay,
yeah, I saw that you use StatSport, and I think they have this game manager or whatever where you synchronize the video with the GPS data. Yeah, I think it's really useful. Okay, so let's go to some slides if you like.
I think just like on that one, like on the younger ones, probably else as well for the 40s, it's like really probably less complicated than it sounds. It's like some key things we want to inspire them and show them what the best do, and almost like, okay, if you want to outplay in a specific way or go 1v1 in a specific way, like watch clips of Mbappe and actually target that area and try to inspire kids to actually do it more, use their role models. And I think he's got like a massive, to be fair, Ash has developed massively the area around not so much necessarily video and data for the younger ones, but inspiration in terms of creating role models for them, making the targets really visual and clear. So like on the water bottles, they have like stickers with almost like a FIFA card. So they have themselves on a FIFA card, and it could be, I don't know, beat my opponent 1v1. And then it could be like a role model. So it could be Bernardo Silva on that one. Can I beat my opponent 1v1 like Bernardo Silva? And then we try to link what we show them on the videos with that. And with the other ones, we have something which is quite good. When we do their reviews, instead of writing down stuff, we put clips. Okay. So we get 3 or 4 clips of their targets and then feedback on those clips. And then what the boys will do is that they will answer questions and feedback to us. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a two-way process. And we have conversations on the clips. So instead of me telling you your passing today wasn't really good, blah, 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 I send you 4 clips of you passing that it was really good, or you need to improve that part of it. So you have actually a visual. So.
Okay, so do you, after a game, you cut basically each player's like make a highlight?
I can show you that. So like Ganch said, this is something we put together recently, and again touching on that inspiration. So we felt that as a group, the under 14s, their front foot passing skills weren't brilliant when Ganchef put together a practice for them. So what we did is we looked at first team clips and we put together just a really short inspirational montage with some music in the background, something that's fun, something that's really short, sharp, snappy and engaging, just as an activation around how useful front foot passing can be in the game.
Front foot passing is that one now if he goes inside of the foot and then he passes with his laces outside of the foot.
Okay.
So obviously then you cannot read what he's going to do because it's more unpredictable rather than lifting your foot and play with your instep.
All right.
So yeah, that's something around the inspiration we've done. And then just in terms of, you're asking about how we then take the footage and what we do with it. So I will show you an example now. So this was the game. This is a game we played on the weekend. We didn't do very well, but the process is always the same. So what I will do after the game when I get the video footage is I'll go through it and do something called coding, and that's, as you say, that's splitting up the game into individual clips, individual moments.
Oh, all right. It's on the bottom here. So you're tagging actions here, yeah? Each player sections, and you separate it. Okay.
Yeah. I can show you the coding there as well.
So, for example, if your targets are, receiving the ball with the outside of the foot better, then what he does is he clips all the instances of you receiving the ball with the outside of the foot, so you can get all your clips, but also if you click on your targets, you will separate the individual bits where your target happens or doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like Ganchef, if you can avoid the names, but you can see here on the
these
are the things I'm looking for. So those are our phases of play. So again, that's around our identity. That's the phases of play we break the game down into. We're looking for things like transitions. We're looking for the more objective things as well. So things like goals, attempts, crosses, set pieces. And then we're looking for things around what we're working on. So, for example, we've had a big focus in the 14s the first few weeks of the season on breaking lines between opposition units, and then breaking lines behind as well. So getting past the final back line of the opposition. So we're looking for those. And something which is massive at Wolves is switching play. So that's a really key part of our identity, trying to switch play to then free up space on the other side or isolate people 1v1. So I'm looking for those as well. And then like Ganch said, coming back to the individual, so I'm looking, every individual will have every involvement in the game clip, so whether that's a tackle, a header, a forward movement. But then like Ganch said, if their target is around forward movement, I will then add another label onto those clips to identify those to Ganch to the players as, okay, I think you might want to go and review these clips more than you would the other ones based on your targets. And then based off that, this is called the timeline. So then this is what I've gone through and found within the clips. I'll show you the matrix here. So you can see, obviously it'll be different for every player, every game. But I found like 7, 9, 5. So I found a few clips out of potentially, so some players might have 30, 40, 50 clips. And I tried to narrow it down to 5 to 7 to 8 maybe, that I think are reviewable around their targets.
All right.
But then it focuses the attention of the players, for example, when they're reviewing the game. Because obviously the kids and then they go to school and they don't have that much spare time. Sometimes it could only take you like 2 minutes to actually just go, okay, what am I working on? Can I click on it? Can I watch my 4 clips of what I'm working on? So.
Yeah.
All right. Is it some specific software that you used for this, or?
Yes, this is called Huddle Sports Code.
Huddle Sports.
Huddle Sports Code. That's the software we use to code and create presentations, and then do things like telestration as well. So I don't know if you've seen on Monday Night Football where they have kind of the arrows and the circles on and things like that. So this software gives us that capability to deliver that to even right down to the under 9s as well. And again, that's part of the process in terms of making it fun and engaging for them. So it actually looks like something they see on TV. So when they come in, they're excited, they really want to engage. So by the time they get to 14s, 15s, 16s, they've got a really positive outlook on analysis. It's not how it used to be in the old days where a first team might lose and the manager got them in the day after and made them watch the whole game and hammered them on it. It's something to enjoy, it's something to be engaged in, it's something to be inspired by.
Yeah. Showing a lot of positive footage actually to sort of reinforce that. Is there any way we can show what we do for pre-match?
Yes, that was the next thing I was
going to do. Some of the unit stuff.
So
centre back receiving basic forwards with.
So let's get Albert feeder.
So what we do as well is obviously because we work with younger players. I think one of the big things we try to focus on this year is around individual concepts. So, okay, we could be trying as a team to switch play or break line, but me as an individual, what sort of action, what sort of concepts will allow me to do that? So if I want to break a line, me facing the line of pressure, is going to be really important. And little bits like that are more centered around how I play as an individual and my actions, rather than the whole team sort of idea. So we just have a few examples of him of him painting those things on that.
Just trying to find the best one, probably this one. So again, this was delivered in units. So this was for our defensive unit. So something we've worked a lot on was breaking lines with diagonal passes.
So not playing straight, playing diagonal.
So there we go. So that's called telestration. So we can start to make it look engaging and paint specific points on there that we want to make to the team.
Sky Sports.
Yeah. And again, the temptation with that is to do it on everything, to just absolutely load it up with paint. But that's probably more appropriate for older age group players. Whereas because we're working with younger players, we want them to engage and give us their answers as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes deliberately we won't put any paint on clips, and we'll show them the clips, and we'll actually get them to feedback on what they've seen, what they've observed in the clip, before we then go on with our points. And again, at the younger age groups, we do have those weekly time slots where we can show them these things, but again, it's quite short, and it's quite a small amount of time, because they've got training, they've got school, they've got lives outside of football.
Yeah.
So what we do sometimes is we'll send this out to them. So that's again where the telestration is really important, because we might not be there to explain it, but we want to send it out to them maybe as an activation before they come in and speak about it, to speed up the process. Or we just want to catch them with something. Maybe we've got a game tomorrow, and we've just thought of something we want to show them, and we haven't got an analysis session beforehand. So we've got an online platform where we can share these things with them remotely as well, so they can access at home and again have a conversation with us away from the building as well.
Oh, it's like homework, if you will, in some way.
Yeah, but we try not to explain it like that.
Yeah.
If you say homework to a kid, they immediately think, no, I don't want to do that. But ultimately, it's watching football. It's fun. They love it. It's when we were kids and we were playing football, we never had that experience of every single second of your journey is captured and you've got it as a record, so you can go back and review it. Maybe if we had a bad game, we came off the pitch, we thought we had a bad game, and we were really emotional about it. We didn't have that 2 or 3 days later where we could go and watch it back and actually say, oh, actually maybe I wasn't as bad as I thought I was in that game. There were positives in that, but because I was so caught up in the emotion at the time, I've forgotten those things. So it means you can more accurately reflect on your actual performance 2 or 3 days later.
I think it's like little things in terms of consistency of the messages we say. So for example, I could be explaining to a kid that it's really important to play diagonal instead of playing straight, and recognizing when to do it. Some of the clips we played is probably not good examples, but it's actually them seeing, well, actually if I play that pass diagonal, I'll be more successful, I'll be better. And then that makes it a bit more believable, because sometimes you listen to stuff, but when you actually see it with your eyes, and there's consistency between what you normally hear and what you see, then you think, okay, it makes sense now. So it's just probably another way to convince them and inspire them to do those things, really. So
Okay.
it's just an extension of the training session, I think.
Is there a next step? I mean, next level to it? I mean, what can you add to this? I mean, it's already, it's something that I've never seen in an academy settings. And do you think you can add more? You can improve on this? Really?
Go on, I just put it on.
Yeah, so this is probably the next step now. So probably the biggest difference between the age groups I work at and the PDP or first team is that access to objective data. So traditionally with the 9s to 14s, everything has been very video based.
Okay.
And as you say, we've developed that really well. I think the way we use it now, the processes we have in place, they're excellent. But something we're starting to think a little bit more now is how can we objectively measure? So a lot of the video can be subjective, subject to people's biases, different people's interpretations. How now can we put some objective measures in place?
So this is for the under 14s?
Yeah, so that's from our game again.
Like statistics.
So,
Alright, no, just,
again, it's about keeping it age appropriate. So I don't do this for the 9s to 12s because I don't think it's age appropriate. It's hard to measure the game because the game is so chaotic. It's so back and forth. There's not that many patterns or things which occur consistently. And again, it's around the individual. So would doing team stats actually help us with that mission of helping the individual? Potentially not. But at 13s, 14s, when they start to play 11v11, it opens up to the full-size adult pitch. Then we can start to measure some of these more objective things. And again, this is all done through Huddle Sports Code on something called scripting. So it's a template that's set up and it's scripted in the background. And then as soon as I finish that timeline, which you saw earlier, we press one button and this just completely populates. So it does it by itself straight away. So we can have this within 5 minutes of the game being coded.
Oh, right. So for the Huddle, you know if you pay per game or is it a yearly subscription?
No, so
or?
Huddle Sports Code is like a club-wide subscription. So we'll pay for a certain amount of licenses. So one person's laptop with the software on would be a license.
Okay.
So we pay a license fee to Huddle Sports Code and we have a certain amount of licenses. So to cover all the first team analysts, all the academy analysts, and then some of the first team coaching staff use it as well.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you, like, is there a cheap way to do it? I mean, of course, not like this, but I'm not sure Bulgarian academies will be able to afford it. But as a person who is really into this, is there a way a coach or an analysis in Bulgaria can do it, like, in a bit simpler, not so in-depth, of course, way, but get around to it.
So when I started at lower league football clubs. So I started at kind of Swindon Town, Bristol Rovers in League 1, League 2 in their academies. And this was the software we use. It's called Longo Match. Okay. It does have a free version, which you can build a code window like I've shown you here, and you can start to clip certain things. It doesn't have all the features, but they do also have a paid version, which I think is about £25 sterling per month. Okay. So this is the most cost-effective method I could suggest. Obviously, sports code is out of reach to kind of away from kind of Cat 1 academies in this country. So I know kind of grassroots teams and lower league clubs will use this software as well.
All right, so you just put the game, you
so
tag
you
players.
Video the game, you can put it in there, you can tag it. I think the most basic way is just to use a free video software. So even if you can't afford longer match where you can clip it, just putting it into kind of a movie maker or an iMovie on your MacBook, and then just separating up the game that way. That's probably the way analysis started way back in the day before these softwares all existed. But in terms of an actual analysis software, this is the most cost-effective software.
Yeah, it's more time-consuming probably.
Yes.
But at least you can do it in a way that's...
I think it depends on what it is. Like, that right in the sense of like if you're doing an academy, if you're working with an academy and you don't have resources. I remember when me and one of my friends worked in like Bulgaria over the summer. We used to go for the games on the camera, and we cut 5 clips on Movie Maker, and we think, okay, those 5 clips we want to show to the boys, like 20-second clips. And then, like for the inspiration thing, like simple things like YouTube, like there's so much information on YouTube that the boys can actually see, and if you use their attention in the right way, then they can learn from it. So I think as long as you want to do it, there's like lots of ways to be creative with it.
All right.
I think kind of just to add on to that as well, it doesn't always have to be about video. So something we've done for the younger ones is they now have this scrapbook. So that's almost like their journal, their log of their reflections from the game.
Right. Each player has something like this?
Yeah, so every single player has one of these scrapbooks which has things like match reflections after each game, so they can write down their own reflections. So that's what I was talking about in terms of them starting to analyse their own performance. So they're not, same as we want to create independent decision makers as players. So that's players who can go out onto the pitch and be creative and make their own decisions without a coach on the touchline saying, you move here, you move there, you make this decision. This helps with that off the pitch as well. So analysis doesn't always have to come from staff, it can come from the players themselves. And obviously that's a journey from the time they start under 9s where maybe everything's based on emotion or they only look for certain things. But through the educational process of this, they start to become more rounded in terms of analysing their own game. So if I didn't have access to video and I wanted my players to almost analyse and break down their own performance, that would be the very first thing I would do.
So it's like a personal journal in
basically, yeah.
Football, focused.
Focused,
what kind of things do you want them to put? I see some meal plate, so it goes from eating, journaling what you eat, how you sleep probably, and stuff like that.
So it started as purely football, but it's become more of a holistic, all-round development tool now as well. So we've added in things like our psychology team. I've added in psychological tasks as well. That's from our nutrition team to see how they're preparing for the match and how that relates to their energy levels during the match as well. What else we look for them to do in the scrapbook is plan. So when they get their target, like Adrian mentioned, on their water bottle, we ask them to, so they'll get their target in here, and then they have to set their goals and how they're going to go and achieve their goals. They can plan their own sessions, that they have time in the weekly schedule to come in and do themselves.
So sometimes we give them like 20 minutes, especially when they're younger, and they have more time. And we try to, like, what we think sometimes we have, with this point where the boys not doing, coming in early, for example, not doing anything. And we thought, well, let's educate them. Let's from 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, start asking them, okay, that's your target. Can you design a session that you train yourself? So I know like individual coaches are really popular and people pay 50, 60 quid to sort of, for someone to improve your left foot. But actually, if you have a wall and you're in your own and you have a mind, you can coach yourself through it. And that's something we used to do as kids. And we think like, okay, how can we help the players actually recognize our process and try to be better at it? It's not like rocket science. The practice could be that simple, but just ensuring, okay, if I need to work on my left foot receiving from the air, how can I get as many opportunities to receive left foot from the air? It could be as simple as kicking the ball up and controlling it with different surfaces or whatever. And then we hope when they're 13, 14, 15, 16, that process will look like now, well, when I come to 20 minutes earlier and I can practice on my own, I have an idea how to structure it myself.
All right. Well, that was really interesting stuff and in depth. Like, are the analysis and basically personally are you really specialized in this, or you want to be doing some coaching one day, or how does it really work?
Yeah, so how I started was purely as an analyst. So I'd done little bits of coaching before that, before I discovered analysis and discovered I had a passion for it and really wanted to go into it. And then I went down the educational route, so I did a master's in performance analysis with a placement here, and then became full-time that way. Now this is just my own personal belief, but it's my personal belief that in maybe 5-10 years time, you won't necessarily have separate analysts who are specialised in that. You'll need to be able to cover more than one area in terms of analysis and coaching. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm upskilling myself. I'm doing my coaching badges. I'm trying to join in more in sessions. I'm learning from people like Adrian who've done it for longer than myself, to try and upskill as a coach, which one improves my level of analysis, so my level of game understanding, what I can pick out from the game, what I can feed back on. But then also it helps me for that 5-10 years down the line when maybe it has to be a dual role where you're a coach and an analyst, a bit like it is in some European countries. So it's kind of future-proofing myself for that as well.
Okay. I just had a thought, like, you start doing the analysis for 9-year-olds, under 9s,
At Wolves.
Yeah.
Yes, from under 9s, yeah.
So if I ask you, why not under 8s, under 7s? What would be your answer? Why not?
We don't
you don't?
That's a practical one. So in this country, clubs aren't allowed to sign players before their under 9 seasons. That's the first time you can offer a player a contract. We do have training sessions for under 7s and under 8s, but they're not attached to the club, so they can come here one night, they can go to Aston Villa another night, they can go to Birmingham City another night. They're not attached to a specific club. So
they're not registered?
Yeah, they're not
registered within the club?
So you cannot register a player before their under 9 season in this country.
But if you could, would you do analysis also for them? Do you think it's useful, necessary?
I think I'd have to experience it first and get to know those players and see what players are like at that age group, because I've not worked at that age group before. But my feeling would be I probably wouldn't. I think even though we like to start young and put those foundations in place, I think there's a danger if you do it too early, it becomes boring and it becomes stale. We're expecting a player to be here for 10-15 years in terms of their academy journey before they even reach a first team. So I think if they're doing it for too long, they'll get bored of it, and maybe those messages and those things that we're trying to show and trying to do it in an engaging way, that will probably lose its effect at the older age groups if we do it too early. And ultimately at 7s and 8s, the game is about fun. They just want to have fun. They just want to be free. They want to be creative. They want to make mistakes, everything like that. So probably too much pressure and too much critical analysis on it would probably take away from that as well. Okay.
So, we could spend here probably 2-3 hours. Is there something that I don't really know what to ask you? This is so much like stuff that is new for me. So
yeah, I've just pulled up our online platform. So you've seen kind of the internal processes. So I showed you Sports Code, how I internally process the video and create presentations. But this is the external of that. So this is what the players and parents and staff will get access to.
Okay.
So this is an example of our under 14. So you can see things like the matches, the games that are in there. But then you can see the training sessions we film as well. So here's an example of a training session we filmed.
Okay.
And again, this is important not just for the analysis of the players, but for the coaches themselves. So we ask players to be reflective and work out what they've done well, what they can do better next time. But the coaches doing that is just as important. And I'm sure Adrian will agree that having his sessions recorded, being able to go back and see maybe, okay, what part of this session worked really well, what part of this session maybe didn't work so well. That helps him in the future if he wants to go and deliver that same session. Okay, well, how would you do it differently? How might the context be different? What might you do?
Okay. Well, that's for sure. This was what you showed. Is artificial, one of the artificial
Cameras.
Yes,
So
I can talk a little bit about the cameras we use as well, if you.
Yeah. What cameras?
Just before we do, so that's that game I just showed you in Sports Code on my timeline.
Yeah.
So this is how the players see it. So again, they'll have the video, they'll have their timeline with all their individual clips, and then all the team clips down here as well, so they can watch those back. And then, like Adrian said, they've got their individual learning plan as well. So if they just want to see the clips which I've picked out around their targets, they can go there, filter it really quickly, and spend less time watching it back if they're really busy.
Okay, so players have access to this.
Yes, so all players have access to this. They can use it on a laptop. They've got it as an application on their phone as well. So they've got unlimited access to this essentially.
Okay, from all the way from under 9s to
to first team. So the first team players use this platform as well. So the first team players will watch their games back or analyse future opposition through this platform as well.
Oh, that's really, I think it's really helpful. It saves a lot of time. It helps you reflect on your game, watch, how you've done it. In Bulgaria, what happens, like mostly, parents shooting the game and then making highlights of their own kid, and it's time consuming. It's not everybody does it, and it's really done in a very professional way.
In terms of the camera systems we use a lot. So we're not dedicated to one camera system. So off the top of my head, we probably use 5 or 6 different systems. So when I came in, everything was through manual cameras. So we'd have a manual camera that someone would stand and move around and film the game with.
Okay.
But obviously that's time consuming for me as an analyst. So I've lost maybe 2 hours during a game where I was filming, where I could be analysing a different game or providing feedback to staff and players. So in the last few years, we've taken on those automatic camera systems a lot, to the point where it's nearly replaced manual filming for us now. So probably 95% of our filming is through automated camera systems. We use a system called Speedio, which is a fixed camera system. So out on our brand new grass pitches, you might have seen these big green poles, and at the top of that, we've got fixed cameras which just stay there. They're always on. They're connected to the internet. So if Ganch wants to go out and deliver a session right now, just through one click of a button on my laptop, I can start a recording, and it comes through as a live feed straight away. We also use VO cameras. So they're essentially the same. So again, they will do auto follow, they will auto track, but they're portable. So especially for myself at the younger age groups, where we're going to loads of away games, we're going to lots of different sites, or the pitches are a lot smaller and we want to see more of a close-up angle, I will use a lot of VO cameras to capture that. And again, it's auto follow, it's automated tracking as well. So we use a lot of different camera systems, but ultimately it's to get us the best quality footage, because I believe that's the starting point. So you've seen all the bells and whistles, but ultimately if your footage isn't very good, all that stuff isn't going to matter. Because even silly things like when you're telestrating the clips, if the footage isn't very good, the telestration doesn't really work. So the software can't understand where the pitch dimensions are, so you can't draw arrows on it or circles. So good quality footage is the starting point for everything.
How does weather conditions affect it?
So some of the systems we have are waterproof. So for example, VOs are waterproof, the fixed camera systems are waterproof, but you're always susceptible to a drop of rain landing on the lens and then obscuring it, and then your footage doesn't look so good. But it's just one of those things, especially in this country where it rains probably 80% of the year. It's just one of those things we've got used to, and at half time I'll just get the camera down and wipe the lens and on to the next half.
All right. Okay. So anything that I forgot to ask, or you think it might be important, because unique. I'm not really prepared to ask the right questions probably, but Adrian.
No, I think it's like a lot in there, and sometimes it can look complicated, but the reality is it is quite simple, yeah, and it's the idea is just to give the boys a bit more visual, a bit more an idea of when we're saying something, how does it look like? When you experience something on the pitch, then going back and watching it. All those bits are quite important. So sometimes like I'll pull them on the way back from a bus and I'll say, well, listen, we were speaking about that, have a look at it. So you have a look and really understand it. And it's the same with the stats. Like with the stats, we actually say to the boys, well, we want to be really good at saying playing through teams and connecting in our midfield or whatever, but are we actually are? And that, again, depends on the opposition, depends on a lot of stuff, but it gives you a bit over long term, so over 20, 30 games, it gives you a bit of objectivity that in games, if we're not consistently doing it, then we need to be motivated to get better and find different ways to improve it. And I think it's a bit of inspiration, a bit of motivation more than anything else. So, yeah, the boys love it. The boys love the stats. And, you know, I mean, when we put them on the wall, they gather around and they speak about it. So, yeah, it is quite simple. I think boys are quite used to it now, so it's nothing different to them really.
For them, it's like the norm.
Yeah, I think for me at the 9s to 14s age groups, it's that longer term view as well. So I think a lot of analysis is about the here and now. So can I get better here? Can I get better now? But like we spoke about, it's putting those building blocks in place so that when they get to the older age groups, they know how to use the huddle as a platform. Mm-hmm. So the coach isn't having to show them, here's how you use it. They already know how to use it. They know how to analyze a clip. They know how to break it down. It's not just that was a good pass. It's why was that a good pass? How was that a good pass? And even with the stats, it's educating them that what do these stats actually mean, and how we might not use them in isolation. So in isolation, something might look a certain way, but then when we go and watch the video, that might give us context behind, okay, why is that stat like that? Maybe the opposition played deeper, so that's why we haven't got line breaks in behind. It's not because we were poor, it's just because that game required something different. So it's educating them on things like that, how you use data, how you use video.
Okay, I've got a question now. Just had a thought about. My brother has the license for Bulgaria of a company called Tactilize. They do individual tactical analysis and education, and you do it in a team environment. So my question is it really what part of it is connected to team analysis, and what part is it like based on individual tactical analysis? And I'm going to connect the question to like, are there any first team requirements? For example, we want the wingers to play in a certain way, to move in a certain way. We want the fullbacks to go all the way up or stay more down. And do you have a communication with the first team?
Yeah.
You do it based on positions or like?
Yeah, so here I can only speak about Wolves, but here the connection between the academy analysis department and the first team analysis department is seamless. Okay. So we're just one department. We're not separate. We have access to everything the first team do. So every game the first team analyse or every opposition they analyse, I have access to all that if I want to have a look as well. And the buildings are so close together that if I have a question for one of the first team analysts, I'll just come over, go into their office and just have a chat with them. So the connection is kind of seamless. And like I said before, we have a playing philosophy which runs from the first team all the way down.
Okay.
So again, a lot of that content in terms of video, in terms of slides, in terms of presenting will come from the first team and then be filtered down to the analysts in the academy, and then I will feed that into the coaches and the players. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, well, it was kind of this.
Positions. Yeah,
positions,
so
yeah.
Is
it based on
what we call positional profiles. So the first team, and again, that will depend on the manager that's situated at that point in time. But we have first team positional profiles of what they would, like you said, what they would like their centre backs to look like. I think as an academy, we do try to follow that a little bit. So we'll take inspiration from it. But our aim as an academy is, yes, to get players into the first team, but our aim is also to be self-sustainable. So that means we want to create valuable assets. So that might be players who don't ever even play for Wolves, but we might sell them to another club in a different division or different country or different league for value. That means we can then go and reinvest in the academy. So they might not get anywhere near our first team, but that is still part of our mission statement. So for example, a few years ago when we didn't really play with wingers, we still played with systems in the academy which had wingers, and we were still developing wingers because wingers are a massive part of the game. So just because our first team didn't require it at that point in time, we're still centered around those individuals. And we might have a centre back here who's completely different to the positional profile for a first team centre back, but that doesn't mean he won't become a first team player somewhere else. He still might be a professional footballer and still might be a valuable asset to us. So it is a balancing act between what the first team want, and obviously that's right here, right now. So if you're an under 9 and you're an under 10, by the time you get to the first team, it might be something completely different. So it's always about having a balance of, here's roughly what we look for, but also you're an individual, so you might not fit into that box, but we still want to develop you and make you the best player you can, because you might be an asset to us.
Yeah, it's like a fundamentals that it doesn't matter the system and the style of play. For their position, they're important.
We have like certain, I would say, like principles. So like, there's an example, like we're talking about positional stuff, and we have like that thing where we want to get 5 attacking players in the back line. So if you have like a 5, say we can get 2 midfielders, the 2 wingers and the striker, but you have midfielders who are not really attacking, and you have 2 city midfielders, and you have a fullback who's really attacking, and you want to get him high up. So you can still do it. So you still have the 5, but you're accounting for the individuals you have. Yeah, you may have 3 midfielders that none of them are really attacking, so you may do that, and you may get both your fullbacks high if you have 2 attacking fullbacks. So there's different ways you can do it to achieve those principles, but what we're trying to do is, okay, what players we've got, how can we actually achieve them, and how can we best develop them. And about the team, I think you asked about the team and individual analysis. That's why I said those individual concepts. So we have collective principles, so say one will be switch and play, but we know that for us, in order to be successful switch and play, if you watch first team football, the most important thing is how do individuals interact with each other to achieve that. So our analysis is a lot centered around not so much, or as a winger we play 3-5-2 and that's the rotations we're doing. It's almost, okay, there's a bit of that, but there's a lot more, how do I receive the ball to connect with the next person? Where does my first touch take me? And that's all the individual bits. So if I'm midfield player, my target's on receiving, I'll get a lot of analysis centered around, if I want to switch play, how do I need to receive the ball? And little things like that really, but it's a lot around the individuals. I think we've gone away, we don't do too much team analysis maybe to give them an idea of how we look as a team, but we don't focus on, okay, that's how we played last game, let's break it down, let's break down the shape we played against, let's play down our shape. We have those collective principles which never change really for us, but we go, okay, as individuals, how can we get better to achieve them? So if you want to play through our midfielders, how can we receive the ball better to do that, etc. So.
All right. Well, great stuff, guys. Thanks a lot. I mean, it's I came to do a short documentary, but it will turn out trilogy or like a series. Well, we have to, but I'm sure it will help a lot of coaches, and it will inspire a lot of people to do new stuff, to try new stuff, and see how it's done here on the top level Premier League club academy.
I think the last thing from my perspective is like to be creative with it. So when I started in analysis, I was not doing any of these things. It took time and it took experimentation, it took trial and error to find what actually works, and that works for this context, that works here. If I went to a different club, I might have to do something different. But it's not always looking at big clubs like Wolves or Man City and thinking what they do there must be the right way to do it. There might be a different way that you discover, and that works for you in your context, and it's just as good. And I think that's a massive part of analysis. There's not one way. It's not black and white. It's not one way to do things. It's what works for you, what works in your context.
All right, great way to finish.